That council approve the agenda for June 25th, 2024.
Second.
Motion made by Lewis and seconded by Dobry.
Lewis,
Aye.
Kiefhoffer,
Aye.
Dobry,
Aye.
Randall,
Aye.
DeHaven,
Aye.
Rule,
Yes.
Dina.
Aye. All right, we're going to move on to number 2 on our agenda, the consent agenda. The listing under consent agenda is a group of items to be acted on with a single motion and vote. This agenda is designed to expedite the handling of limited routine matters by City Council. Either the public or a council member may request that an item may be removed from the consent agenda at the time prior to council's vote. After reading the consent agenda, I will ask if a citizen or council member wishes to have any specific item removed from the consent agenda for discussion. A, approval of the council special meeting / work session and agenda minutes of June 11th, 2024. B, approval of the expenditure list for June 25th, 2024. C, approval of a fermented malt beverage and wine liquor license for Maverick Inc., DBA Maverick number 497, located at 455 State Street, Cortez. D, approval of a renewal hotel and restaurant liquor license for Cashmeen LLC, DBA Lots of Pasta and That's a Pizza, located at 439 East Main Street, Cortez. And E, approval of a retail liquor store liquor license for Mariana Lloyd, DBA The Cellar, located at 2410 Fairway Drive, Suite B, Cortez. So would anyone like to have something removed for discussion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Dobry and seconded by DeHaven.
Lewis,
Aye.
DeHaven,
Aye.
Randall,
Aye.
Kiefhoffer,
Aye. Aye.
Rule,
Yes.
Medina.
Aye. Okay, we are on number 3 now on our agenda, public participation. There's no limit to the number of speakers, although public comment will be held to an overall time limit of 30 minutes. Speakers have a time limit of 3 minutes per person, may only speak once, and may not cede time to another commenter. Okay. Thank you. All right, I'd like to invite Mindy Nelson. And make sure the microphone is on green, and then just state your name and the area you live in. We're no longer asking for address.
Hi, my name is Mindy Nelson. I want to welcome the new council members. It's been a while since I've been around over in this room. I'm here tonight to speak on several different topics. With what has happened with Matt violating the law, not recusing himself from judicial hearing on the logging business, he knew better. He's been in politics way too long. He leads the Montezuma Leadership Network training, new urban body, that hasn't even lived in Cortez for a year. He sits on the Parks and Rec Board. He is in close contact with Terry Paul, with the Great Old Broads, and sitting on the Parks and Rec Board within the council emails on subject of the Carpenter Trail. He was a spokesman for the Bill Gates Foundation. He needs to step down and not continue his term. The lawyer came in for the council special training, said nothing he did already, he doesn't already know. Shame on you. The new council members need to ask him to leave, and we're asking him to leave. Now you're adding a gag order to silence the citizens for the Cora reports. Their attorney in the last meeting was saying it's taken too much time for the city is losing money because he's worth more. The normal family will not be able to afford to look into the work you are supposed to be doing for the people. Oh yes, there are no secrets, just hidden proof. That has been definitely proven with the corruption on the decision with the logging company which wanted to come in and create jobs versus Donna Thompson, longtime city public works employee, owner of LePew Septic Services. It looks like we missed a few steps while going through that process with the planning department. We are seeing favoritism, and this is why you are raising the Cora price. Are there many more secrets being unfolded? You should be held accountable why the administration is making 6 figures. Please don't raise that price. We need a separate economic development program except from community development, not combined. There's too much power in the hands of Rachel Marchbanks and through the control of Montezuma leadership, who is influenced by. Marchbanks only has a background in nonprofits and small-town elected government aside from her Marxist leadership program, which Matt Kiefhoffer and Chuck and MB McAfee have long to been on board. It is showing the council is not in favor of free enterprise. You should rather push what they are calling affordable housing, demolish private property where we are eventually own nothing and be happy. Like you said, Rachel, you've worked hard to rebuild the trust. We are seeing you sure have done a good job. Please don't abandon what you started. I hope you all read the emails I sent you on the trickery of affordable housing. Let's start talking about free enterprise and working on for the people, not against them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. All right, I'd like to invite up Charles Jeter. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Charles Jeter, and I have a legal residence in San Diego, California, with interest here in the area. I've always said that I would provide as much information to council as I could about issues I saw impacting decision-making. What you have in your hands in the handout is the outline of my investigation I wrote up October 4th. As a historical document, the handout does not include conclusions of fact, rather includes the summary of the leads that I had at that time. CORA was intended to disprove or prove these theories. My CORA, I have about 31 of those I've put out. That's probably the most that Muck Rock's seen in Colorado. That process has been lengthy and adversarial. This is on the agenda today, and I'll talk about that later. This handout also establishes I'm not merely some disgruntled citizen. It's a logical flow and order, evident to a reasonable person, and establishes my protocol. A CORA FOIA is what I consider Tier 3 of investigation. I'm performing the forensic evidence recovery and review with Tier 3 open source with CORA. Muckrock.org is the ultimate sunshine as a disinfectant. My CORA phase is mostly complete, and I'm in discussion with an outside vendor on the next phase. The law reviewed is deprivation of rights under color of law. Section 242 of Title 18 makes it a crime for a person acting under color of any law to willfully deprive a person of right or privilege protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States. For the purpose of Section 242, acts under color of law include acts not only done by federal, state, or local officials within their lawful authority, but also acts done beyond the bounds of that official's lawful authority. If the acts are done while the official is purporting to or pretending to act in the performance of his or her official duties. This is a federal offense with penalties which can be applied individually as well as to the municipality in question. Prison time is a potential as per justice.gov. So here's what we know as fact right now. So far, my retrieval of phone recording and emergency services call, Rachel Marchbanks exceeded her authority under that section for 242, claiming in that call that Creighton Wright notified her, meaning he exceeded his authority if this contact occurred after business hours. These actions can't be dismissed as ignorance. In light of McElwain's shadow IEP, it becomes a probable motive. Opinion follows. What I'm investigating and what my opinion I'm talking about is what I'm going to talk about. These aren't yet facts, but they drive the core requests. You have to understand why I'm requesting so many things. I'm following leads up. It's very sequential. I put the outline on. I started in October. So it's also likely not yet eliminated that Councilmember Kefauver was involved as pressure on Marchbanks, maybe overt or covert, I don't know. Terry Paul claimed in early April email through CORA that Kefauver was aware of the situation. I'm paraphrasing. Therefore, Marchbanks' actions outside of the scope of her job may have been due to the shared enterprise between her and Kefauver of Montezuma leadership, which CORA has shown significant contact for the past 10 years. She may have felt pressure. There may be something else there. That's all I can tell you right now because of the time. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Charles. All right, do we have anyone else in the audience that would like to speak during public comment on an item not on our agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment section. And we will move on to number 4 on our agenda, presentations. 4A is Colorado House Bill 24-1175, Local Government's Right to Property for Affordable Housing, presented by Drew Sanders, City Manager.
Yep. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am presenting to you tonight on the aforementioned bill that was passed by the state legislature. Keep in mind that as I'm delivering this to you, this is informational only. It is not my role to advocate for or against this. This is an important thing that has occurred that the council needs to be aware of and perhaps offer guidance to staff on how to proceed, if at all. All right, so this House bill essentially gives the local government the right of first refusal or offer on qualifying multifamily or affordable housing units. Usually that has to be, it's not just any housing unit. It either has to be a multifamily or at least have 5 units in there. What this bill does is makes it so this is local governments or all governments have the right of first refusal on existing affordable housing units, and then basically, it offers us a chance to make the first offer on that. So if a qualifying property owner intends to sell, they now must give notice to the local government and the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. And then they need to do this 2 years before the final expiration of the last existing affordability restriction on the property, so a deed restriction of some sort. Then a second notice not less than 6 months before the final expiration, and then additional notice when taking action as a precursor to sell a property. So any thing they would do, perhaps hiring an attorney, hiring a realtor, any intent to sell. Then once that occurs, we receive the intent to sell the EAH and the local government. Then we have 14 days, and I won't dig into everything here, but there's a system set in place wherein we must follow the prescribed process, and then to make that offer on the property. Then if the seller rejects the offer, then we basically have 14 days to come back and make a new offer. The bill is somewhat silent on what happens if we just can't make a deal. So we would have to look into that a little more if council so desired. This also applies to multifamily, residential, and mixed-use rental properties of between 15 and 100 units. And it also has a prescribed method on how to proceed. Just quickly, the government has 7 days to respond and so on. Although I placed it in here just for your edification, I don't know that we necessarily need to discuss it at this point. But I would like to talk about other applicable rules. The local governments may partner with certain other entities for financing. It allows certain properties to be exempt for the first right of first refusal or offer, and it does require the Attorney General's office to get involved should these provisions not be followed by a property owner. With that being said, these are meant to be very broad strokes this evening, just so we can get a feel for how council feels about this, if we want to just proceed with state law or take additional or a different action for our city. Now, what this bill does allow is for us to opt out of it if we so choose. And with that, I turn it over to council for discussion.
Well, Robert is the one who brought this to council, so I'd like to hear his thoughts on it, because I've got questions.
Sure. I brought this to council and suggested that we opt out of both provisions of this for a couple reasons. I have concerns about the staff time and our ability to make sure that we meet those deadlines. I have concerns about, the most severe concerns are about private property rights. I don't think that, I think it's a taking of private property rights, and I don't think that it would be in the interest of Cortez to be party to that. I think that it creates liability issues if we were to be involved in delaying or possibly causing the failure of a real estate deal. And I don't think that it has, I don't think it's constitutional, I guess, is really where I'm going with that. So that would be my argument why we should opt out of both provisions.
Okay, so are you saying now with this bill, anytime multifamily comes onto the market, our staff is gonna have to do something now?
No, That's not what it says.
Okay.
What it says is there's a burden upon the property owner to notify us, notify the Colorado Bureau of Housing, et cetera. And then even if they, they make a move for a precursor towards an actual sale. So
And so they wouldn't have
burden
to,
falls on them initially.
but they wouldn't have to if we opted out.
They would not have to do anything of that nature if they're in the city of Cortez and we opted out.
Okay, I guess I don't see it as a concern right now because like our council is what established that we don't want to be landlords or purchase property. But are you saying you want to protect the city and private property from like future councils?
Well, I mean, future councils could always decide that they thought we were wrong and opt back in, but I think for our council, just to avoid any issues related to private property rights, I think if we opt out, it then opts our community out, it opts landowners in our community out of having to do that reporting. It avoids us spending staff time on something that I think really it isn't a fit for Cortez, and we've already, our entire board has already said we're not in the landlord business. So I think that yeah, the easiest and simplest and fairest thing to do would just be opt out of both provisions.
Yeah. I've got some scribbles I'm going to try to read. Do you have any idea how many affordable housing units we have in the city that fall into these categories?
Councilmember, good question. We did not research that as part of this bill. We focused merely on the provision.
Okay, and then with this bill, is there any way, if the city bought a property, it made it affordable housing, they then have to run the whole project? I know you can work with partners, but it's basically saying the city would then take on the landlord responsibilities. Is that correct?
Well, we wouldn't necessarily take on the landlord responsibility. I mean, there's a role we would play in that, but what I'm hearing you say, and I would put that to if we were to partner with the Pinion Project or something like that, to do that's going to be a long drawn out process. Financing is going to be an issue unless the council opted to pay cash for whatever that is. And honestly, I'm seeing some very accelerated timelines here. I don't know that, a council like ours where we meet every twice a month, I shouldn't even say every 2 weeks, it's going to be very difficult for us to comply and do this and get through, because you can count on at least 3 council meetings to get it through our process if we accelerated it.
And then what's the timeline for opting out, and is it possible to opt back in later?
Both. There is no timeline on opting out. It merely says that we have that option. And it doesn't talk about opting back in, but under our system, should the council opt to opt out, what we would do is just pass a resolution, and then if the council wanted to opt back in at some point, they could rescind that resolution.
Okay, yeah, for me, after reading it, I was kind of racking my brain trying to think of a specific Cortez example that this would be effective and usable in, and I really couldn't think of anything. And so I feel pretty neutral or okay with an opt-out, but I'd like to hear from other people as well.
Madam Mayor, if I could add, the classification for the right of first refusal is that any multifamily or multifamily rental properties of not less than 5 units that currently exist, and the requirement is they have to have some recorded deed restriction or other recorded agreements to ensure affordability. So it's not just any multifamily property, it's those that have previously been established as affordable through deed restrictions or other agreements. And once you get up to 15 or more units, then it's just any multifamily, but that's not right of first refusal, that's the right of first offer, which in the first instance, somebody could go get an offer, and then the city would have the right to match it. That's for the smaller 15 and less. The right of first offer is they have to offer it to the city before they can go out and market it to the general public. So it's two separate criteria, but you know, I'm guessing we may have a few multifamily units that are over 15, but probably not many. So most of ours would be the 5 to 15 category, and they already have to be created as affordable through some sort of recorded document.
I agree with Councilmember Dobry. I think it's very important that we opt out. By doing that, I think we send a clear message to our community that we are not interested in being landlords, and it just takes all the requirements away from our staff.
I have to agree 100% with both council members. Giving the government an unfair advantage over a private enterprise is not constitutional. It's not what we're about. And I think we send a clear message when we say we're not for this. And it lets our citizens know where we stand.
And I do want to point out too, I think that us as a council and city do a lot for affordable housing, and it's been one of our goals. And I just feel like this bill isn't really written for a city like ours. It feels very like front range to me and larger city, and that's why I just couldn't even think of a housing unit that would come up that would fit the criteria today.
April?
I'm in agreement with both all council members Dobry, Lewis, and Spruill. I don't believe this is the job of the city. And I do believe it is unconstitutional in its basis and what it would imply on us and what it would burden us with and what it would require the citizens to do with their private property. So I vote for making a statement that we're not interested.
So I think there's just a general consensus that we want to opt out and remove the burden from property owners if there's one that matches this criteria. So I guess bring it forward to us and we'll vote on it.
Yeah, we will prepare some documents and make an agenda item for next meeting in July, and hopefully come in with something that's acceptable to council on this matter. Thank you, council.
Great. Thank you, Robert. And thank you, Drew, for presenting. Okay, we're going to move on to 5 on our agenda, public hearings. We have none. So then 6 is unfinished business. We have none as well. So we're going to move on to number 7 on our agenda, which is new business. 7A is an award to award a lease bid for 2 greens mowers for the Conquistador Golf Course, presented by Creighton Wright, our Director of Parks and Recreation.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This item, as you mentioned, is to award leasing 2 John Deere greens mowers. I'm going to take you back in time just a little bit as a matter of presentation. This item was initially bid earlier this year, and council approved both the purchase of these green mowers as well as giving authorization to the city manager to negotiate lease terms with John Deere Financial, who is the producer of these 2 mowers. We stepped back based on the terms and specifically the interest rate, and felt like we could likely find a better rate going through not John Deere, through another private entity. And so Finance Director Koski helped me with this item and did some research and bid out the lease to several different companies that have recently bid on other equipment in the city. And after bidding those, we were fairly certain that we could find a better rate. And I'll talk about the results here in a second. The lease terms that we reached out to these different companies with are included in the council memo. That included the lease for these 2 mowers, which are 2750 precision cut triplex reel mowers from John Deere at a purchase price of $112,356. It would be a 5-year lease term, a 1-year end-of-term buyout, and we were looking for ultimately the lowest interest rate and/or the lowest monthly or annual payment. So with that, the results of the lease payments bid is included in the staff memo under the discussion section. We ended up with 3 additional bids in addition to John Deere Financial. They all agreed with our terms, and so the rates that were proposed are Commerce Bank, 5.2% with an annual payment of $24,805.18. Western Equipment Finance with an interest rate of 6.65% and an annual payment of $25,687.38. Kansas State Bank, 6.71%, $25,000. And finally, the John Deere initial bid was 6.9% interest rate at an annual payment of $25,668.03. And as you can tell by my reading off of this and looking at the chart in the memo, Commerce Bank was offered both the lowest interest rate as well as the lowest annual payment of $24,805.18. And that ultimately, over the 5-year term, as compared to John Deere, would save us $4,314.25. So with that, the fiscal impact on this item, we budgeted in the equipment fund $27,000 for an annual lease payment for the next 5 years. So that saves a little over $2,000 annually, based on what we had budgeted in the equipment fund. So with that, my staff recommendation is that council rescind the authorization to sign a 5-year lease with John Deere Financial, award the lease bid for 2 greens mowers for the Conquistador Golf Course to Commerce Bank at an interest rate of 5.2% and an annual lease payment of approximately $24,805.18, and authorize the city manager to negotiate the lease terms and sign the lease agreement. So with that, I am finished with my presentation. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Great, and I have a question. Am I correct in that we have those mowers on site already, just sitting there?
Councilmember Lewis, yes. The way our equipment purchasing has gone in the last 2 years, it's generally taken 6 to 18 months to get a similar type of equipment. We ordered, as an example, a Parks mower from Toro last year, and we're going on roughly 14 months waiting for its delivery. We were just notified a couple weeks ago that it is in Arizona and ready for delivery once we finalize lease terms for that item. So this one from John Deere, knowing that we bid it, awarded it, and notified them at the end of March, and it arrived in May, really caught us off guard and surprised us. So with that in mind, yes, it is sitting in our yard. We have not used it because we have not agreed on lease terms at this point. But I do want to thank Clerk Linda Smith and Drew, as well as especially Kelly Koski, because we put this all together very, very quickly because of that surprise.
I just want to make a comment. We can't get bids on this mower stuff because it's specialized. But what Kelly Koski did was fantastic. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to thank Kelly for always pushing us to be better stewards of tax money, so thank you.
Madam Mayor, with that, I move that the council rescind the authorization to sign the 5-year lease with John Deere Financial, award the financing lease for the 2 green mowers for the Conquistador Golf Course to Commerce Bank at an interest rate of 5.2% and an annual payment of approximately $24,805.18, and authorize the city manager to negotiate lease terms and sign a lease agreement.
Second.
Motion made by Lewis and seconded by Sproul.
Randall,
Aye.
Dobry,
Aye.
Haven,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Rule,
Yes.
Efoffer,
Aye.
Tina.
Aye.
Thank you, council. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Creighton. All right. we're gonna move on to 7B on the agenda, resolution number 11, series 2024, a resolution amending the 2024 fee schedule for the city of Cortez.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Before you tonight is two suggestions to be made to our fee schedule that was adopted in November 2023 for the city of Cortez. Our state legislation, they have adopted a new fee that can be effective July 1st for our core requests. Currently, we are charging $33.58 as currently required by state statute 24756B. It was changed in 2019 as they approved at that time. Currently, the legislative is suggesting that we change it to 4137, and that would be effective July 1st, 2024, as they have recently authorized. Also on this fee schedule is a request from the Public Works Department. In our current fee schedule, we have a section called right-of-way construction permit holder. And they are asking that we add additional fees to that fee schedule that would cover the surface roadway replacement need. And I'm not really positive how that works for them, but the way they worded it was surface roadway replacement cold patch and surface roadway hot patch. The two fees are written there on the fee schedule, and it would be added to our fee schedule so that people, the community can see what that fee is, and it's not something that they don't know of. So staff is recommending that these two fees be changed or added to our fee schedule, our 2024 fee schedule. We did receive a public comment. It is in front of council this evening. If you council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, and I think that the change in the fee schedule for core requests would only be for new requests after July 1st. It's not gonna be retroactive to anything actively going on.
That is correct.
And then 5 years ago, did we change it this time of year as well? Is this just kind of a standard practice we've had?
Usually the core fees are corrected at the first of each year. For some reason, they have done it in the middle of the year. I don't know why, but they have, and we received the update from the state, and so we change when they do.
Okay.
And Madam Mayor, just to clarify, so the statute under CORA requires the Legislative Council to update the maximum fee that may be charged every 5 years. The last time they did it was in 2019. So the 5 years comes up this year. And so the council, and they base it on the Consumer Price Index. The Legislative Council met, and the $41.37 figure is what they have implemented as the maximum that governments may charge. So I want to clarify that it's not required that we charge. It's a maximum, and we have been charging the maximum, and I think most government entities, including the state, charge the maximum, but it's not a mandatory requirement, and the council is free to set it at any amount equal to or less than $41.37.
Could I ask you a question? How much does it cost us to process that? Do you have any idea? I don't want to be making money.
No, it varies. As I said, and I've confirmed that we are not unique in this regard, but we have various staff that get involved in retrieving and reviewing the records that are requested under CORA. Most importantly, to ensure that CORA has certain records that it's mandatory that we not release them. There are other records, such as attorney-client privilege documents, that it's discretionary upon the city whether they release them or not, but our policy has always been If it's attorney-client privilege, we don't release it. And there are a variety of exceptions to what is available for the public. And to review that, I've got a paralegal, a half-time paralegal in my office. She reviews a lot of this stuff. I review a lot of this stuff. It's difficult to say exactly how much it costs us. You're well aware that I make more than $41 an hour. So to the extent my time is involved, and we don't bill it out based on who's reviewing it. So we get right now $33.58 an hour, whether I reviewed it all or the clerk reviewed it or my paralegal reviewed it. And so it's difficult to put an exact number. I would hesitate to say that we're making money on it, because it can be very time consuming reviewing every record to be sure that we're not, number one, releasing things that the statute doesn't allow us to, and number two, releasing things that are subject to privileges and confidentiality rules.
So just doing some quick math on 4137, that's about 86,000 a year. So that would be like the average salary of all the people touching this. You know, so trying to make back the money and time that it pulls them away from their like normal duties.
At what price, Mayor? I didn't hear that. Your very first.
The new fee schedule, the $41.37, that's about an $86,000 or $86,000 a year salary.
And just to clarify, the Colorado core law still retains the first hour is provided at no charge.
That's correct.
The rate's changing, but that's
Majority of our requests, we don't charge anything because they take less than an hour.
Okay, thank you.
To retrieve and review. But certainly there are some, and you'll probably hear about some tonight, that because of the volume of records, it takes a lot more time, and regardless of what you're charging, it starts to add up, and it can get expensive if you request a large volume of documents.
Out of curiosity, you said that the majority of our requests that we receive fall under that 1 hour time period and are under the free schedule then at that point, is that correct?
Yes, and we get a variety of requests. Either they are for very few records, in which case it doesn't take long to retrieve them and review them, or we have some people that request only the metadata, which is the electronic signature of the data, but it's not the text of the data. And those, regardless of how long it takes to retrieve them or how the volume, it takes less than an hour for the IT department to retrieve that. And it's an effective way for a person who is requesting a large volume of documents or records to look at the metadata first and kind of cherry pick the its emails, and they can go through and see the date from who sent it, who received it, who was copied on it, and if there's an email that they want to look at, then they can come back with a subsequent core request for those specific records. And sometimes that's a large number that they request after reviewing the metadata, but it is one method of doing it to save money. But yeah, it's most of them are below the hour.
Thank you.
So we don't charge.
Well, do we have any other questions or comments, or do we want to put a motion out?
Madam Chair, I would recommend that you do have some written public comment, and there may be members of the public that would like to speak to this issue as well.
Okay, I can open this up for public comment. All right, we'll invite you to the podium. Can you speak in 3 minutes?
I'm hoping to, but I would like to answer questions because I'm kind of a subject matter expert in this because I've got 30 of them, and respectfully, I have my ins and outs and ups and downs. I'll complain about those later, but I want to make sure people understand the process. That's why I put out the diagram, so people understand the value of this. This is something I consider the first, I'd say the fourth estate of the Constitution, the press, and that includes everybody civilian. Nobody has, I have a press ID. You don't have to have one. Anybody can come into government, go ahead and say, hey, I'd like to see what's going on here. Metadata, as Patrick mentioned, or the attorney mentioned, is important if you are a techie and you understand how to basically look at things. You get a vibe from it. And once you do that, you reduce the time burden on his staff, which I think is a win-win. In my experience, I will differ in the opinion, just to let you know that my requests have always been 2 hours or more, with the exception of 3 or 4. I could be mistaken if it's only 3 or 4, but out of the rest of them, I've had extensive time, and I've been very frustrated in that process. I do have some suggestions on how it could go forward. I'd like to actually open that up to a workshop, because I think we have a win-win, especially with looking at how the city of Fort Collins puts out a portal that allows all citizens to go ahead and review all emails unless marked specifically private, and there's a way that we could talk about that. I obviously can't diagram that all, but I did send the March 28th, I think was when May 28th is when I actually got a response back for Fort Collins that could take a look and audit their process. So I just wanted to go ahead and say that. We can pause my clock if you want, and if there's any questions to me about what we've done or how we've done it or how important this is, I emphatically, in every single one of my requests, I've put in there the costs are onerous. If you can do this for the interest of the public, please do it. Because we have a community, not everybody's out there has gone to college like I have. Not everybody's been a private investigator like I have. I want the most people to look at this stuff if they feel uneasy about something. So it's not about me so much as it is people who want to know what's going on in government. And I think if people start looking at that, it makes them relax a little bit. I've operated almost as rumor control, and I'm not saying that some of the rumors haven't actually had foundation, because I found a lot, but the issue is a lot of people hear a lot of stuff on the street and they don't know how to get there. And they're intimidated to try to figure it out. So this is a process that I think if people get comfortable with it and they can go ahead and request it like Muck Rock or something like that I use, it kind of increases the cohesion of the community.
So, I think you bring up good points, good concerns, because like, what's to stop us from dragging our feet and really making it more and more expensive? I don't think that that's the case here, because I think there's also the balance of like, if someone is requesting over 100,000 emails, does take time. That is a huge burden to staff, and that takes a lot of time away from their daily duties. So that's either going to cost a lot or just take a long time to get to you. So, and also with an investigation, you want to be as specific as possible, and that helps find the things maybe that you're looking for with keywords or date ranges, and short that kind of pile that they really have to sift through to pull the things out that are legal or provide those things. As far as like just having our emails out publicly all the time, I mean, that's definitely a conversation we need to have. I mean, because this is a right to be able to see our emails, they're public record, but it's all a balancing act of time and staff and the cost. So
And Madam Chair, I could clarify, I spoke with the City of Fort Collins records clerk today, and they don't put every email out. It's the council emails. They have a retention policy for all emails of 2 years. So we get records requests from individuals asking for every email from every council person from January 1 of 2000 or the beginning of time. And
I've made
show
that
you
request.
several of them. And if you're talking about trying to save money and save costs, I don't know what they're fishing for from January 1 of 2000 or the beginning of time, but unfortunately Cortez has not deleted a lot of their emails, and so but I can tell you Fort Collins deletes them every 2 years. There is no requirement in Colorado beyond a 45-day retention period for the state. The city has no legal requirement to retain emails. The state requires that all of their departments, unless you specifically want to save it for long-term retention, they get deleted after 45 days. There is a uniform act that doesn't apply but could be adopted. It relates more to business records that recommends 3 years retention. We go back much further, and that's one of the problems with having these voluminous requests is you get a large volume of records. But Fort Collins still reviews, and they have an attorney that's almost full-time reviewing all their Cora requests, as well as a full-time records custodian in the clerk's office. And they said that they do training of council. They don't allow staff to communicate with council via email on most items. And that eliminates the amount of documents that have to be reviewed. The attorneys, and they have a filter that also filters out any privileged or confidential items before they get posted to their internet portal. So it's not as simply as all of your emails would appear weekly. There's still a process that would be gone through following Fort Collins. Obviously, if it's just the emails you send or receive in a week's time, the review time is much less. But somebody still looks at them, and to be sure that there are no confidential or other emails that might violate Cora in terms of prohibitions for public release. But you know, when you get from the beginning of time, that can be a lot of emails.
Well, and I also want to make sure that this isn't used as like a harassment
Concur, and that's why that's why I wanted to share my methodology. I wanted to make sure that people understood specifically where I come from and how I scope my investigation of what I'm looking at. Because I am looking for specific things and indicators. I have the community talking to me, people are funding me. I think I have a positive $294 balance that's held right now that they're trying to figure out how to deal with, and I'm like, let it ride. Because people are giving me cash in the community. I take no money from that. It goes straight to the core requests. I have a lot of people who trust me with their confidentiality because of my background and my ethics as a journalist. I'm a whistleblower. I haven't had a W-9 in probably 14 years. Okay, so people understand that I stand for what I believe in, and I do think that the interest of the public in how I've phrased every one of my requests, at least since the first couple, has actually had in there, you know, please don't charge if this is in the interest of the public. And as far as I understand, any member of council could actually direct staff to go ahead and release these in the interest of public if they think it is. I don't know, I'm just saying that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
So, yeah, and we've gotten your materials and we've heard from you, so I appreciate it, because I want to make sure that I don't dive down the rabbit hole of discussion. But, so thank you for coming and sharing your perspective. But I do want to hear from other council members, like.
And Madam Chair, just to clarify, the city has a fee schedule. Staff is not able to deviate from the fee schedule, and an individual council member cannot direct staff to deviate from the fee schedule. The individual council members, as you heard in your last training, really have no power. You have to act as a council with a vote on an agenda item that has been published at least 24 hours ahead of time, and so it's a little more difficult than just having one of the council members decide that they want specific documents released. Now, that doesn't mean that you couldn't vote to waive the fee schedule, but we would have to have a resolution for that purpose, and it would have to be published and then voted on at a regular or special meeting.
Okay, we're gonna limit you, and then I'll close the public comment section. Yeah, is the microphone green? Okay. It's towards the front.
I pushed it, it didn't work for me. George Nelson, own a piece of property here that my grandson will be moving into hopefully this year. My question is, now you're proposing a workshop to try to come up with a solve concerning how ambiguous it is to get these records, whether they be minute or major. Is that for public use or lawsuit?
Madam Mayor, point of order, the speaker really needs to address the chair of the council. That's the purpose of this now.
Yeah, so this is to address us. If you have comments for him, you can ask.
Okay, well, I'm just asking, it was about a workshop, right? So why would we be not willing to succumb to a workshop, see if there's a resolve? Now, is this for all, council, is this for all records that are kept in the city of Cortez? That you have to pay after first hour of any kind of records that you want? Or is it, are we talking emails or council members or certain?
Just to clarify, this applies records that are subject to the Colorado Open Records Act. There is also the Colorado Criminal Justice Records Act that has different requirements, and it doesn't have a fee schedule. It's kind of outdated. It has schedules for printing and paper copies, but it makes it discretionary. And Carla could maybe correct me if she's here, but yeah, I don't believe we've ever had a criminal justice records request that took more than an hour to produce the records, and so I don't think we charge for criminal justice records. But that's all the police records and the court records.
So,
And then anything recorded with the clerk's office, that's.
so we don't have a open forum where, i.e. Joe Public, can come in and view files and request copies. It all has to be done by an employee of the city?
I don't know that process, but I would encourage you to, after, just in the matter of like moving on with this meeting, because we need to make a decision on the cost of this, and whether we have a broader conversation about Cora and our emails and retention periods, we'll do that at another time. But I guess any questions you have about accessing documents and the definition of all those, I would direct you to our city attorney, Patrick Coleman, or Liz Smith, our clerk.
Okay, so
Thank
the main question was still, do I come in and look at stuff, or I have to request through you a formality of?
It depends
what-
on what
It
form
depends
you
on-
want. If you want to just come in and see a subdivision plat, you can request and staff will sit there with you and you can look at it. If you want a digital copy of it, then you have to request it through the Cora process. Or if you want a paper copy of it, and then we have paper copy fees rather than digital copies, and I mean, you can get a Mylar size, full size copy of a plat if you want, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to own property in the subdivision. Ask a plat for anything, but you want a large number of records, and generally what we're seeing are email requests, but
Okay, so we're talking 20-year-old technology and not up to date like big cities have availability where you can go in and you can request right on the computer in front of you. You request
Well,
documents,
anything that's
pages,
recorded.
chapters, etc. So we're antiquated.
Yeah, and
So
I
I think
we're.
a workshop would be in the best view of all the citizens of the county, period, that need to come in for any kind of documentation. And I think that would be a beginning.
Okay.
To show that open, we're not hiding nothing, we're open for new ideas.
Yeah, I think any kind of document you request, whether it's at the county clerk's office or here or time that it takes, it generally has a fee. That's common practice. So let's get back, let's close public comment.
One other quick
section
question, is there gonna be an open question time?
We have a public comment section at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. And you'll get 3 minutes then. All right, so I'm going to close the public comment section. Thank you for turning the microphone on. Do we have a motion on this or any other comment from council? Any opinion on the cost?
I'm okay with the costs. I've dealt with large FOIA requests throughout my career. I think this is a fair price that the state is recommending. It's not that we don't want to be transparent with information, but there is a burden on the staff, and it takes time, and it does the same thing. It's very standard from the federal government all the way through. So I would like to move that council approve resolution number 11, series 2024, a resolution amending the 2024 fee schedule for the city of Cortez, and specifically the Cora fee under the section entitled Public Records Standard Fees and Charges, and a new fee category under the right of the construction permit to be entitled Surface Roadway Replacement Cold Patch and Surface Roadway Replacement Hot Patch.
Second.
Motion made by DeHaven and seconded by Randall.
Dobry,
Aye.
Randall,
Aye.
Lewis, Rule,
No.
Kiefhoffer,
Aye.
Haven,
Aye.
Tina.
Aye. All right, we're going to move on to 7C on our agenda, city board and committee appointments. Presented by Linda Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight before you is the information on the terms of our city boards and committee appointments. Council has held interviews, the last 2 work sessions of interested citizens. Tonight we held 4 more from the last meeting that we had. In front of you, you have the list of the names and their applications that were received through our new portal, which is just amazing to have done that. Thanks to Wendy Aga for doing that. But before you are the list and the terms, and if council would like to make appointments or have open discussion on that, this is the time for that. If you have any questions.
I'm going to suggest to council that we start with one board and move through, and then do we make a motion altogether, or do we make a motion for each board?
Mayor,
Whichever
go
way.
ahead, Mayor, that would be up to the council. It might be easier just to do all, one all at once, but if it's gonna turn problematic, I would suggest breaking it up.
Okay. I guess we can discuss one board at a time, and then we can always make the motion all together. So sorry, I'm just trying to sift through last meetings.
And I think we decided we don't need to worry about the Historic Preservation Board. Is that correct?
We do need to make the appointment official. Council
Okay.
does make all the appointments.
So that'll be Holly Tatnall.
Correct.
All right, do we want to start with library board, or, okay,
Just
we only
start.
had one for planning and, did we only have one applicant for planning and
Yeah.
zoning? Okay. And 1 seat open, I mean, I'm fine with that appointment too.
She seemed like a good candidate.
Okay, do we want to move on to
Library.
library?
Yeah, I'd really like to advocate for Ally Mon for the library board. I worked with her on the board for the last library director interviews, and she just brought excellent input. She's really excited about the board, and I think she would bring a new perspective that the board really needs. I'd also like to advocate for Damian Smith. I think, he is newer at boards, but he brought up some good points about the library being a place of community relations, and it had some ideas about making it a place where people could really come and do some personal growth and development. And he also has experience with fundraising, which is something that could be applicable to a lot of different things. And hopefully, as the Friends of the Library group comes back together, that would be a great thing. And then I'd also like to advocate for Heidi Bruger, who we interviewed today. She's been a volunteer at the library for a long time, and just has a extensive background working in boards. I think she understands the community and the library, and has a good vision of where it should be going.
I definitely would concur with, in particular, Allie and Heidi. Allie had mentioned last time we met that she felt that the library was a place that should be accessed by more people, and that she would bring enthusiasm and a fresh perspective to the group. And her desire would be to expand the programming. So I think those are all good forward-thinking things, and I had a kind of a similar experience. Some of the things that Heidi said this evening were kind of similar. Public space, community can gather. That she would bring energy, and she's a creative thinker. So I think that those are good attributes.
I'm gonna agree with Councilmember Kefauver and Pro Tem DeHaven that is a particular board that I have concern with curtain members, and I think that board desperately needs a refresh. So I'm gonna advocate for the 3 new people. Does anyone else have an opinion or want to fight for an incumbent?
Okay.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Board. This one has had a lot of interest. So we have 4 open seats.
One of the people I would like to advocate for, and I think articulate pretty well why, is Ken Quigley, who spoke this evening. And the thing that Ken really has is longevity on the board, and he has basically a historical reference of what happens with the Parks and Recreation Board that no one else has. And I will also say that he's one of the most organized people I've ever seen. When he shows up at a meeting, he has a binder that's like 4 inches thick from every meeting and every note that he's taken the past few years. So I would advocate strongly for Ken to remain actually on the board.
I would agree with that as well. And another person I would advocate for is Richard Landreth. He's been water superintendent for 8 years, and when you look at how much open space we have, I think water is a real key, and I think with his experience there, he would be a great asset.
And I'm going to advocate for Julia Buff. I think she brings the perspective of a parent that is unique and needed for that board.
I would agree with that as well.
Okay, I'm trying to look through the rest of my notes.
The last one we have is Alan Klein, or that's not the last one, but we need to have 4, is that correct?
Yeah, so it's between Alan Klein, Dennis Olson, Steve Moore, and Melissa Basden.
And I agree with Kenneth, Robert, and Julia for all the same reasons the other council members do. In fact, I have them all written down the same way they presented them. And I'm going to have to advocate for Alan because he's been there before. He's done that. He's familiar with the process, and I think he's pretty open.
Does anyone feel strongly about anyone else?
Yeah, Matt, did you have any other thoughts since you've been working with people and on the boards?
No, I would say that those 4 people for Parks, Recreation, Forestry Advisory Board and the reasons that were given are good choices.
I would like to make the comment that Steve Moore did a really good presentation as well, and there would be nothing wrong with any of the people that applied. But I was also impressed with Steve.
Can I ask Creighton a question? I guess I just want to know if your other committees are full, or if we can encourage the people we don't choose tonight to join those committees.
So I only formally have one other council committee, and that is the Golf Advisory Board, and it is full.
Okay, because subcommittees, I guess I'm thinking of the subcommittees, those have to be already board members and not citizens? Yes, thanks for coming to the mic, sorry. This is a conversation, not a quick. Thank you, Creighton.
Council, you may recall when we presented the purpose statements for those subcommittees, we only required that we have no more than 2 current advisory committee members, whether golf or Parfab, be actual members of those groups. All the rest of the members on the advisory board can be residents with interest in that specific topic. So each one of them, at this point, we have 2 members for both forestry and rec center users groups that are Parfab members. The rest of the members, we're currently trying to seat the rec center user group. That's not been done yet. Applications are due, actually, I think Friday, if I remember correctly. And the Forestry Advisory Board has a pretty solid group of, I want to say it's 6 or 7 members, residents, 2 Parfab members, 5 residents. It's a really good group. That's a good number that I would be happy to stay with, but if we needed to add another, we certainly could. The maximum we wrote on the purpose statement, if I recall, was 10, although we were shooting for around 7 for each of them.
Okay, I guess the list of people like Robert Remy, Dennis Olson, Steve Moore, and Melissa Baisden, can we reach out to them if they don't get appointed to direct them to those boards? Because I'm assuming most of them hold a rec center pass.
Yeah, that would be the one request, rec center users groups. We did put some prerequisites, if you recall, and that was that we expect them to be regular users within the last 3 months at the rec center. So assuming that they have a pass or are regular users, that would be fine, sure.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not asking you to make special favors. I'm just saying, like, I just want to capture that momentum of like interest and giving back of like,
absolutely.
You didn't make it on this board, but we have openings here, and if you meet the criteria, we would love to have you here.
Madam Mayor, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And then we also need to appoint the youth to our Arts Advisory Committee, right? Okay, just making sure we include the Nix as well.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that we appoint or accept the appointment of Holly Tatnall as the Cortez Cultural Center representative to Historic Preservation, appoint Nina Tao to the Planning and Zoning Commission, appoint Allison Mon, Victor Smith, and Heidi Brugger to the Library Advisory Board, appoint Alan Klein, Richard Landreth, Kenneth Quigley, and Julia Buff to the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Advisory Board, and appoint Nix Poland as our youth applicant to the Arts Advisory Committee.
Second.
Motion made by Dobry and seconded by Lewis.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Pfeffer.
Aye.
Randall. Lewis.
Aye.
Brule.
Yes.
Medina.
Aye. All right, it was great to see so much interest in our boards. I hope that this momentum continues with the community and that this is a problem we always have. Okay, we're gonna move on our agenda to okay, that's the wrong agenda. All right, 8 on our agenda, draft resolutions and ordinances, we have none. So we'll move on to 9, our city attorney report.
No report, Madam Mayor.
All right, then we'll move on to 10, city manager report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do have a report for you this evening. First of all, I'd like to point out that I attended the annual Colorado Municipal League, or also known as CML conference, this past week in Loveland, Colorado, with Mayor Medina, council members Randall and Spruill, as well as our city attorney Patrick Coleman, where we received a multitude of information that will help our city, including some relevant training. While at the conference, Mayor Medina was elected to the CML Executive Board for a 2-year term. This is a pretty prestigious position that will help our area to be better represented on a statewide level. Congratulations, Mayor Medina. That was well-deserved.
Thank you.
I think I should have called for a golf clap there, so. All right, secondly, our airport parking lot construction will break ground on July 8th. Signs will be placed directing people to use the overflow parking lot across the street. The project should be completed in 30 days. I don't know where Jeremy is, but I'm pretty sure that 60 days has an asterisk on it. So, yeah. Anyway, secondly, the city of Cortez will be hosting the upcoming 4th of July celebration with the addition of a classic car show this year. The Cortez Community Band and Flashback, a classic rock band, will perform in Centennial Park beginning at 6 p.m. Food trucks and vendors will serve their fine cuisines all day while parked along Mildred Road, and which will also be closed between Montezuma and Empire. In the evening, it will end with our annual fireworks display. Finance Director Kelly Koski has been accepted as a mentor for the Government Finance Officers Association, also known as GFOA. She is part of the National Mentor Program and has been assigned as a mentee from Redmond, Oregon. Director Koski has successfully guided the city through some overwhelming and demanding financial situations over the past years. Suffice to say that I think she's an expert at this point, and especially with the auditing process. Anyway, we feel that it's good for us to exert our influence elsewhere and help other municipalities. Also, I'd like to share an employee, whoops, I got one more thing. Well, I'll do an employee highlight, then I got one last thing, Council. The employee highlight this evening are Helen West, our Community and Economic Development Specialist, and she was nominated by Rachel Marchbanks. Helen joined the City of Cortez in June of 2023 and has been making a great impact ever since. In the years since she's been here, she's helped the Historic Preservation Board and the Cortez Public Arts Committee stay organized, as well as take on impactful projects such as Historic Preservation Days, a historic Cortez coloring book competition, and the 81321 launch grant initiative, as well as facilitating grant-funded surveys of the city historic assets. Additionally, she is spearheading the City of Cortez's statewide assessment brownfield grant, and including on an ongoing project of developing an area in the area-wide plan for the South Broadway area. Potential outcomes of the study include recommendations relating to zoning, land use refinements, capital projects, and marketing branding activities. On behalf of the city, she wrote and was awarded a $179,000 grant from the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, or OEDIT, to help 6 locally owned businesses improve their facades, purchase equipment, and provide training. Excuse me. Helen has taken on many other initiatives to support businesses and enhance economic opportunities in the city, as well as supporting housing and land use code efforts currently underway in the Economic Development Department. Helen is a skilled and dedicated employee who is working to enhance the quality of life for the residents of Cortez. With that being said, I'll just personally say that Helen has just been an absolute fantastic addition to our organization and a great team member. To conclude, we'd like to congratulate our Deputy City Clerk, Donna Murphy, on a designation that she just received. And Mayor, I think we were hoping that you would present that.
All right, I'm so sorry I lost my paperwork here for this, but we are just so incredibly proud of you. This is a lot of hard work, and we appreciate you, Donna, so here you go.
So Mayor, by way of explanation of this, she earned the designation of Certified Municipal Clerk, as the title was awarded to her by the International Institute of Municipal Clerks for her 5-year commitment and completion of the demanding requirements. We really applaud her and thank her for her dedication and commitment to the citizens of Cortez. Well done, Donna. And that concludes my report this evening, pending any question.
All right, we're gonna, so now we'll move on to 11 on our agenda, City Council Committee Reports. 11A is the mayor's report on the workshop. So we finished our interviews for the boards, which we appointed earlier in this meeting. And then we had a joint workshop with the Planning and Zoning Commission to learn about the ongoing updates to our land use code. And so we have, I encourage citizens to watch our workshop to get the details of the updates to our code and to attend the open house tomorrow, noon to 2 at the Cortez Chamber, and then 5 to 8 here in at City Hall. And if you can't make that, the chapters that are kind of in draft mode right now are chapters 1 and 3 are available online to provide comment, and we encourage you to provide your feedback and your comments to Rachel Marchbanks. And anyone else? Yeah, thank you. All right, we'll move on to other board reports. We'll start with Councilmember Kiefhofer.
I gave my report at the last meeting.
The next Mesa Verde Country Board meeting is on the 8th.
Golf Advisory Board will be meeting this Friday at 7 a.m.
The library board is still on hold until we get the new library director, which we'll get updates soon, hopefully, on the second round of interviews.
April?
I have not had any new meetings with any of the committees that I'm associated with since our last meeting. However, I did attend the conference with you, and it was very helpful. We had, I predominantly attended sessions on homelessness and learned about the city programs that are in place across the state, and both private and nonprofit. Very interesting presentation was on rejuvenating mobile home parks that they did in Montrose, which was very enlightening. So other than that, I have nothing new.
Dennis?
I have no committee report. I did go to CML, and some of the classes I went to were best practices for quasi-judicial decision-making, demystifying the role of the municipal attorney, public comment and First Amendment, the art of active listening, preserving the heritage of your community, and I accidentally went into the wrong one because I still consider Cortez a tiny town, but they're tiny towns they're talking about are under 800 people, but I got some real good insight into Mancus.
Thank you, Dennis. And then I just want to share some of my comments from the conference. One, I'm incredibly honored and excited for the opportunity to be on the executive board for CML. As you all know, we live probably the farthest from Denver, and so it takes a long time for information to come here and information from us and our perspective to reach the Capitol. So I'm really hoping to represent us well, bring our voice to the board and to the legislative opinions that MLC provides, and really just make sure that we are heard and have that direct line of communication with the state. And then attended some great sessions, but One topic that I just feel like was really missing from the general conversation was childcare. Correct me if I'm wrong, Linda, but Lydia was our first pregnant council member, which, really brought that to the surface of childcare, and also being someone who's childbearing age. Definitely one of the youngest people there, and I feel like that's just kind of missing in that conversation of housing, workforce, and just all the other things that our community are struggling is like, we are not talking about our support for families. So I hope that that's kind of, talked about more and more over the years, and I'm gonna kind of push for that, so. Okay. We'll move on then to 12 on our agenda. Other items of business, we have an executive session tonight. Do we have a motion to move into executive session?
I move the council adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing the possible transfer or sale of real property pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024A, and for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and/or instructing negotiators regarding the possible transfer or sale of real property pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024E.
Second.
Motion made by Dobry and seconded by Lewis.
DeHaven,
Aye.
Aye.
Randall, Spruill,
Yes.
Kiefhoffer,
Aye.
Dobry,
Aye.
Dina.
Aye. All right. We will be back. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, let's just. Yeah. All right, it is still June 25th, 2024, and the time is 9:16 p.m. The executive session has concluded and council has reconvened in open session. Those persons participating in the executive session were myself, Mayor Rachel Medina, Mayor Pro Tem Lydia DeHaven, council members Matthew Kiefhofer, Dennis Spruill, Bill Lewis, April Randall, and Robert Dobry, as well as City Manager Drew Sanders and City Attorney Patrick Coleman. No adoption of any proposed policy, position, resolution, rule, regulation, or formal action occurred during the executive session. If any member of council or a member of the public believes that the subject matter of the executive session was not statutorily authorized, or that the discussions that occurred in the executive session strayed from the announced subject matter, please speak up now. All right, seeing none, we will move on to agenda item number 13 on our agenda, public participation. Let me see if I have any more words to read. Okay. There is no limit to the number of speakers and no overall time limit, but each speaker does have a time limit of 3 minutes per person, may only speak once, and may not cede time to another commenter. All right, I'd like to invite Charles Jeter. Actually, sorry, can we start with the gentleman here who hasn't gone yet? I don't know. What? If you need it for your records, yeah. We can do it. So, sir, you'll get 3 minutes. You'll start with your name and the community you live in, like the zip code. And then Donna here has visual cues to show you when you have 1 minute left, 30 seconds, and when your time is up.
Okay. First off, I got really hearing problems. You're echoing in here. I've been able to fly by, but it's like walking in caves in here listening to stuff. So do you have added hearing provisions here for people? No, I'm good for right now.
Okay, and our meeting is recorded on YouTube, so you can always go back and rewatch it.
I understand. I just, like I said, just try to work through it and see what it was like. Okay, my name is George Nelson. Property that I have is 1314 Cottonwood Street. I don't know the zip code, what you have, 81321 here? Okay. So, brief and simple, I bought the property here in town at an auction at the Montezuma office. And I know you got a communication or public information officer now for the city. I talked with her briefly a few weeks ago, or 2 or 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. And glad you got somebody on call. That I gave her a few pointers. One specific thing that I feel sad about is that when we bought the property, there's no communication between Montezuma, City of Cortez, Cortez Sanitation Department. I got more cooperation out of Empire Electric than I did anybody else. There's no welcome. Thank you for joining our community. Hope you enjoy living here, anything of that nature. My physical address I bought 4 years ago up by Summit Lake, 13381 Road 35.9, 81328 Mancus address. But what I am interested in asking the council and mayor left is, are you guys still going to pursue incorporating the Cortez Sanitation District into the city of Cortez to be more beneficial, more cooperative, and service the community and the citizens that are paying into 2 different entities because of that, which would be a benefit and cost savings because they have a paid board, they have employees, they got cream of the cream and equipment and buildings. Are you guys going to continue to pursue that? I know at some point in time you guys did 20 years ago. And that was the main question. Would you pursue it? And what would I need to do to put it on a ballot for the citizens of this community to forcibly vote on that acquisition?
All right, thank you. So this is just where we hear from you and not a discussion point, but that is a great point that we will consider and bring back to the public.
Okay, next meeting?
Sure.
Did you say the next meeting?
I didn't give a specification. All right, so then I'd like to invite Charles Jeter.
Thank you, Mayor. Charles Jeter.
And is this a different topic than what you brought before?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
This is actually about 1050 and 1880 industrial, 1050 Lebanon, 1880 industrial, after my investigation. So with some investigation on this, I just wanted to go ahead, and I told everybody I was going to bring my results back to the council. I just happened to be here today, so that's what I'm going to do. Crisis management is where you're constantly thinking 3 inches in front of your face because you're not able to strategize and effectively execute. Accountability and consequences for this for some of the staff should lead to resignations. This is not a pleasant talk, and I don't like it. But it will allow breathing room for the rest of the staff to move forward with clear objectives voiced by the community. So the good news, I'm going to cut to the chase. I do believe that there are serious training issues that happened with Rachel Marchbanks, okay? I don't think there's a lot of intent behind what happened there. And that's because I was able to get things through Cora, all right? However, we have, first, a clear issue of favoritism seen in the comparison between 1050 Lebanon and 1880 industrial. A reasonable person sees that planning and zoning laws were not equally applied, meaning equal protection under law was not achieved. Little transparency into this, but we do have actual evidence that many Cortez staff were not only involved in fast-tracking 1880 industrial, they were obstructing the 1050 Lebanon due to their interpretation and due to outside influence. This is where it gets complicated. Donna Thompson, seen in court-obtained documents, is clearly a partial owner in 1880 Lebanon. Corey Thompson has a federal conviction. Reasonable person in Cortez doesn't see an apple falling far from the tree. So favoritism for Donna Thompson, again, looks like grounds for federal litigation. Deprivation of rights under color of law, section 242, title 18, I talked about that before. As I said, this starts getting complicated and unraveling the strands. Second issue is how we go forward. We have a problem with the foundational qualifications of Cortez staff under 6.24, which I've FOIA'd on this, or CORA'd, and Cortez City Council appointed board members for Planning and Zoning Committee under 6.01, which I've also CORA'd. I've had no responses to that. I've had a few responses, just not actual data. As of this date, the city attorney and the city clerk have confounded the request. There's no transparency into this. Therefore, a reasonable person sees corruption being shielded. This information provides options for council to invalidate the restrictions or findings on 1050 Lebanon and to issue findings related on the new information. CIRSA training on section 3 on outlier. Labeling somebody an outlier is a gateway to groupthink. Groupthink aids and abets this corruption. CIRSA therefore has made themselves a party to individual liability by framing their education poorly for staff and council. I'm seeing issues with the education we have of what's constitutional, and I don't like it. I'd love to have talks about this with the community and try to figure it out. I'm not impressed with Montezuma leadership and how they push their people. So that's going to kind of shrink everything down right there. We have a bundled mess that is not unlike the recent embezzlement matter Cortez experienced long before city attorney and city manager came into service. To unbundle the mess, we need to examine the role of the Fourth Estate of the Constitution, the press, and the media. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I just want to say that we back our staff, and I think we have a great staff, and I think that they are doing the best job that they can, and if there are questionable things, we address it. And so I believe that the city is accountable, and that our staff is held accountable when they make mistakes or when they do wrong. So, all right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by DeHaven and seconded by Lewis.
Dobry,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Efoffer,
Aye.
Randall, Brule,
Yes.
Haven,
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. Thank you.